Maria Sharapova, congratulations on your induction into the Tennis Hall of Fame. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you.
Let's start here. This will air after your induction speech. So you don't have to worry about front running it. Do you have a message, or have you thought about what you're going to say when you actually take the stage and speak to all of the fans that will be watching you when you get formally inducted?
I've spent several days, weeks, months reflecting on my career and what it truly means to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and also the qualities, the weaving thread of this journey. A lot of it was about accepting the challenges that came my way, being persistent, being honest. Being vulnerable, also growing through the process. There were so many ups and downs, as with every athlete's career, and it's about how you endure them, how you approach them, the decisions you make, the questions that you ask. And as I was forming the speech, I felt like I really leaned into those challenges. I accepted that, along this road are going to come, moments where I lose matches and I'm going to have to put my head down and work harder and dig deeper. So I think that the ultimate message is that you often have to lean into that. Don't be shy from accepting that there will be some challenging moments along the way.
As you watch women's tennis today, does a part of you still kind of speak to you and say, I could still be doing that? I could still compete?
No, I've really moved on. I have an incredible family and a 3-year-old son that I spend most of my time with. I'm so lucky to have had an incredible career for those 28 years plus, of traveling the world, of competing professionally, having so much experience, and I really value those lessons, and I get to apply them today. Even the challenges of being a mother, having to pivot and, be consistent and disciplined with my routines and his routines, and also the business decisions that I've made throughout. So there's no doubt that I certainly haven't looked past after retirement, but I still capitalize on all the lessons that helped shape my career.
So you referenced those business decisions. We're CNBC, so let's talk about that a little bit. What are you passionate about investing in today?
Yeah, I've made some really exciting investments in the last few months. Most recently in co-fertility, a fertility program that I'm deeply passionate about, especially um, just the thought of, female athletes now being able to prolong their career and being able to freeze their eggs, and having a place, a safe place, that is knowledgeable, and that gives them the opportunity to prolong their career was really important to me, because it's not something I thought about from a young age, even though I knew I only had so many years in my career. I also invest in a few CPG brands, being Clio bars, Amara Foods, Tash pistachio milk. Those are a few of my recent ones. Also invested heavily in the fitness tech space and tonal, and Therabody. So yeah, that's Bala Bangles is another one.
I have a couple questions for you about the business of tennis. This was a topic I was talking about with tennis writer Gary Nathan on a recent podcast that we did. And we were talking about how so much of the advantage of the top players may have to do with their ability to reinvest their endorsement money and their prize money back into their own games in ways that
Mhm.
lesser tennis players or tennis players that aren't taking in the same type of money are unable to do. So let me start here. Can you walk us through what a typical tennis player's payroll is? In other words, who is in the box? Who is working for a high end tennis player, and
Right.
what are they doing for their jobs?
Yeah. There's several I'd say there's several characters, and the teams have definitely grown since my playing days. there's a lot more social media staff and advisors involved, behind the scenes crew. From a professional perspective, it's the physios and uh, psychologists, it's the coaches. There are now several coaches on a team that share responsibilities through the year because the traveling tour is 10, 11 months out of the year. So they split those responsibilities based on the nature of the tournament. But it's a pretty, intense payroll, and I think the better and, the bigger you are, the more flexibility you have, to help shape, your team, in the beginning, it's usually 1 or 2 people, and, if you have the fortune to do well, quite literally, you get a chance to hire probably 6 to 8, full-time staff.
Do you think the system is fair in that way? So, I mean, just you can take yourself for instance. You obviously won at a very early age, and then you immediately started to get endorsements. I don't know. I mean, look, if you win early, I suppose most players get endorsements right away. You may have gotten more than others, but I'm curious if you feel like the ability to reinvest in yourself skews the playing field too much in favor of the best players so that they're able to stay the best while players 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and on in the world kind of don't have a chance to rise up.
Well, I think, you get endorsements by winning, and whether that's winning when you're a teenager or winning in your 20s or 30s, the truth is the more you win, the more opportunities you will have. Also, different athletes choose to do different things with those assets. They either invested back into their career once they feel that they've built enough of a strong financial foundation. They then choose to invest it into companies for which they feel they have a brand positioning or a voice to be an advisor or just a quiet investor of their choice. So it really depends what stage of your career you're in. Everyone has a different journey. I was thrown into the limelight from a very young age, and I had to find a way to thrive in it. And yes, did I reinvest that money back into my team? I certainly did. I thought it was really important because as you grow older, as you get more experience, you also just become a more knowledgeable athlete, and your perspective changes on what you need and how often.
I could see those early endorsement deals going two ways. You could either get derailed by the fame and the money, and we've seen that with some athletes, some tennis players. Or you could use it, I suppose, as not only motivation but internal pressure, where you're like, oh man, I just signed this big deal with Nike. Like now they expect me to win too, and so like now I'm adding on this other layer of pressure because I've got to make those folks happy to live up to my contract. Did you feel that additional pressure from getting that early endorsement, and did that fuel you to be a better tennis player?
The truth is, as an athlete, you face pressure very often, and it comes from very different angles. Sometimes it just comes from internal pressure, sometimes it comes from outside voices, sometimes it comes from endorsements, and it all changes and shifts based on where you are in your life and career. I always had the perspective, part of my identity was waking up in the morning and knowing that my wins would drive the outcome of, financial gains, and that was my focus, and it was genuinely what I love to do. I love to compete. I love the idea of getting better, and I, had the mentality that the better I got, the more opportunities I had, and whether, I took them or not would be my decision, but I wanted to put myself in a position of having options.
Clearly, a part of being inducted into the Hall of Fame is sort of this um, global understanding of your successes on the court. And in your case, they're obvious: career Grand Slam winner, 5-time Grand Slam winner. But also part of your career was having to take more than a year off because of a doping scandal where, you've admitted to saying, look, I didn't really even understand that what I was taking was illegal. As you look back on that now with distance and years, do you feel like you were treated fairly?
I thought I handled, the situation very professionally. I'm very proud of the way that I handled it. I've spoken about it many times, very, very openly and candidly. And as an athlete, you go through many ups and downs, and that was certainly a tough moment in my career. And I thought I handled it very well.
A couple questions about the current game for you. There's a bit of a dichotomy going on right now between the men's and the women's game, where you have the women's field that's fairly wide open in terms of who may win any given tournament. And it seems like the same two people, Sinner and Alcaraz, keep winning over and over again on the men's side. I'm curious if you have an answer about why that has happened, because we just ended this run where there were three dominant men's players for, almost 2 decades. And now to slip right into this format where there's two more players, do you have a reason why the men's game seems to be more compartmentalized than the women's game?
I love how diverse the women's game is. Coming into a Grand Slam, and knowing that there could be 5 to 10 athletes that could take the title, that makes for the game to be really exciting. On the other side, I love the quality and the level of tennis that Sinner and Alcaraz are producing on a weekly basis. To live up to the expectations, the physical and the mental grind. I'm in awe of their talent. And I think the rest of the men's field will most likely catch up as well. But it's been I'm a tennis fan, so I love watching the men and the women, and seeing the sport from a different perspective has been so much fun.
What changes to the game would you make if you had that power?
Oh wow. That's a deep question. I think look, the more the fans are engaged, the better. And I think that the tours are doing an incredible job of that, really engaging the fan through a player's story. Sharing an athlete's story is just as important whether you're 50 in the world or 20 in the world, because it engages fans from all over the world. That first point of entry into a sport is so critical, because the sport has so much to offer. So once you engage them, you get them to come to an event, you get them to follow a player, they fall in love with so much more than just that individual. They fall in love with the game, and then you have a tennis fan for life.
Last question, Maria. Any US Open predictions for us? Winner on the men's side and the women's side?
Oh, you're really throwing the hard ones at me.
Yeah, I
uh,
saved that one for the end.
Yeah, I'm always pulling for Coco. I watched her US Open victory and a couple years ago, and I think she's such a great girl and an athlete that has so much to offer. And I really hope she has a long career ahead of her. And I'll just choose Alcaraz for the men's.
Maria, congratulations again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.